Hello everyone, this is Father Hayes, and we are continuing our series of videos on the Mass. And what we've been doing for the past several videos as we're preparing to enter more deeply into an examination of the Liturgy of the Eucharist is really developing that deeper context. What are the different themes or threads that are weaving together to form the Liturgy of the Eucharist? So we talked first about covenant, and then now we are talking about the theme of sacrifice, how the Mass is a sacrifice. Now, to put this into a context, because everything is drawn from the Scriptures, everything in the Mass is rooted in the Scriptures, everything in our faith is prefigured by the Old Testament. Let's look at, in this video and in the next video, the 5 types of sacrifices that were regularly offered by the Jews in the Old Testament. So we can break these down into 2 main groups or categories. And the first one that we'll talk about in this video are what we call free will sacrifices. Okay, so these are offered voluntarily, and they're done to express one's love and devotion to the Lord, and also to express the communion with God. Okay, so we have 3 types of sacrifice within this category, what we refer to as a burnt offering or a holocaust, a cereal offering, and a peace offering. Okay, so the first one is what we call a burnt or a holocaust offering. And this can be found in the first chapter of Leviticus. In this, the sacrificed animal, and it's always important to remember, with the Old Testament sacrifices, there was always one who was offering the sacrifice, right, the priest, and then the sacrificial offering or victim. So if it was an offering of grain, that would be the offering. If it was a lamb or a ram or a dove or something like that, that would be the victim. All right? So in the case of a burnt offering or a holocaust offering, the sacrificial animal would be completely, after it was sacrificed, would be completely burned on the altar. And that smoke going up to the Lord would be that offering that's being offered to the Lord. So this is a symbol of complete gift of self to God, holding nothing back, and that gift is ascending to the Father. So in the Passion of our Lord, of course, we say that he was a holocaust offering. He completely offered himself, poured everything out. You have that image in John's Gospel of the soldier piercing his side and blood and water poured out. That was everything he had to give. Now, he wasn't burned, but he gave himself completely. Now, we can also see in his ascension to the Father later on, after the resurrection, that image of that offering going up to the Father too. So that would be an example of what we call the burnt offering or the holocaust offering. The second one would be the grain offering. And in this case, the offering is consisting of raw flour, cooked cakes, or roasted grain. So part of this was burned, and then part of it was consumed, was eaten. So you may also have times where you would include wine and oil as part of this daily sacrifice of a grain offering. So we can see in our Lord's Passion, his offering of himself, that he also not only is giving himself completely to the Father, but he's also offering himself as the bread of life, so that we in turn will consume that. So in that sense, he's also fulfilling the grain offering, or the grain offering is prefiguring his gift of himself. The final of this first category is what we call the peace offering or communion offering. And this is a sacrifice where the sacrificial victim, the meat of the sacrificial victim, will be eaten by those who are offering the sacrifice. So there's, in addition to the sacrifice of the animal, there would be a celebration, a meal element. Maybe not a celebration meal element, but a meal element. And it's done, though, is an act of thanksgiving in particular, thanking God in particular for such favors as saving one from death. It's also referred to as a thanksgiving offering. Okay, so the best example from the Old Testament is the Passover. where this was a thanksgiving to God for delivering the chosen people from the angel of death, protecting them from the angel of death. It had a meal element to it, and it is renewed every year as a thanksgiving offering. And the word thanksgiving also is Eucharist or Eucharistia. So that's where we get the word Eucharist from, thanksgiving. The sacred banquet aspect of it was celebrated as an expression of communion with God and with one another. Now, an interesting element of this culture of sacrifice is that in the pagan religions, they would also have sacrifices where the sacrificial victim was eaten by those offering the sacrifice, and they saw this as a coming into communion with the deity. We, in turn, see eating the flesh of our Lord, as he says in John 6, unless you eat my flesh and drink my blood, you have no life. Right? You have no communion with me. So we see this fulfilled in the teachings of the Eucharist, and how that not simply gives us a symbolic communion with Christ, it actually gives us a very real communion with Christ. And Christ, of course, we profess as both man and God. So in this way, Christ's passion is a thanksgiving offering. And we'll go into in another video specifically how this is fulfilled from the Passover sacrifice. So we'll continue with our next video on the remaining types of sacrifice in the Old Testament. And again, hopefully this is going to give you a little bit deeper context for what is taking place in the Liturgy of the Eucharist. May God be with you.